So, let me take this opportunity to discuss something about the different cutting methods that have evolved in the industry over the last few decades, and what is the way in which say abrasive water jet machining or abrasive jet machining would be figuring among these. For example, when I started my work on my engineering project in my college, whenever there was the requirement of cutting, we were either sent to the power saw or the band saw, and it was if it was something very small, we were sent for do it yourself with a hacksaw. So, after that we became conversant with the method of cutting that was wire electrical discharge machining. So, provided your material is electrically conductive. So, we came across that, and there were also abrasive wheels through the use of which we could cut parts for specimens for chemical analysis or microstructural study, etc. Laser cutting as such, I have to to be very honest with you, laser cutting is just not just another ordinary facility which is available in the lab. You require cutting and therefore, you go for the laser. Still not, I would say, at least in educational institutions. If you require something to be cut into two, we generally do not go for the laser, and still more rare will be you go for abrasive water jet machining, because abrasive water jet machining is costly and it requires good maintenance, because as we have studied, pressures can be well over 4000 bar, and that does require sophisticated equipment, and therefore, these methods that compete with each other at the industry level, they are still not available at the lab level for regular cutting work of engineering components. So, nowadays we will be still going for wire EDM, which appears to be the most popular method, and of course, power saw, band saw, they are still surviving, they are still there. If you have bodies with circular section or any such surfaces of revolution, we can even go for lathe on which you can use the parting tool for cutting, like that. So, this is the status at present for any cutting operation to be carried out. So, I was wondering that if many people are away from their educational institutions, so that maybe you do not have access to your personal computers or laptops, etc. I was wondering whether you can still attend this live session with the help of mobile, etc. Is it possible for the students to interact through mobile?
Yes, sir.
Very much.
Yes.
Achha. Okay. So, for as you know, the exam for the first session has been postponed, and it's not we are not very certain when that can be held again. As for the sake of preparation, I would suggest that you can first of all go through the books that I have mentioned, like Manufacturing Science by Ghosh and Malik, and then Ghosh and Malik is a book which will have a lot of numerical questions. So, you can solve those numerical problems, and you can also see the NPTEL PDF version of lectures which have been posted long back. So, if you give search keyword search like NPTEL PDF and say AWJM, you will get those notes. There also you will find some numerical problems which are present there, and some MCQ type problems. These would be good for preparation. Apart from that, since this is a rerun course, please search for questions which might be there posted in this website, which will be the previous year's assignments, previous year's suggestions, etc., etc. The final year questions, as far as I know, they are not shared. So, you probably won't be getting access to that. Can we somehow check whether this is really on air, because absolutely nobody is responding.
We are always checking.
Okay, okay, okay.
This is live.
Oh, I see. So that means on the
Type it. If you have any queries, please ask. Frequently you do that.
if you have any queries, you can okay, there is one person who has responded. We can do machining process on casting materials. The other question is best process for the finishing. I hope I can understand the question this way, that you are saying what is the best possible finishing method that we can apply on a particular job. Is that so? So, if you are interested in the finishing process to be applied on an extended large surface, in that case there are conventional method abrasive processes like lapping, honing, super finishing, these can be applied, and of late there are some abrasive processes also used, okay, which can be employed for getting finishing on different types of surfaces. So, it depends on the type of finish that you want. I would suggest that lapping, honing, buffing, etc., these will be more or less sufficient for the type of finishing that you might be asking for. There is another question, can I get sample questions for practice for final exam? So, I was discussing this point just now. If you want sample questions, please look up the site for, I mean the non-traditional site, NPTEL site for previous run assignment questions. If they are not available, please send a word, I mean in the forum, please mention that I am searching for the previous year's assignment questions, but I am not getting them. So, I will try to alert the NPTEL administration that these questions which are supposed to be there, they are missing, if they can kindly be put up. So, once again for practice session, you can try out the assignment questions together with solved answers in the previous runs. Okay. The final exam which was held in the previous run, that I am afraid is not going to be available, because that is not disclosed as per present regulations of NPTEL. And as I mentioned before, that if you want sample questions, there are some books which you can refer to. For example, there is Manufacturing Science by Ghosh and Malik, and if you give keyword search as NPTEL PDF AWJM, you will get a discussion on AWJM, that means abrasive water jet machining, which was posted long back on NPTEL, and there you will find a few questions. In the same way, you can give keyword search for USM, you can give keyword search for AJM, and correspondingly you will be getting some PDF files in which there will be questions on these subjects. So, since we have some time, other questions are not are yet to appear. Let me go back to the first question asked by Mr. Nilesh, that about other finishing processes. So, interestingly, when we are talking about surface finish on the lathe, if you notice that the finish is defined by the feed, the tool geometry like nose radius, and principal cutting edge angle and auxiliary cutting edge angle. These 4 items exactly define the surface roughness. But you will notice that if speed is changed, that is, if you go for medium speed, okay, low to medium speeds, the surface seems to deteriorate. Why? This is because there might be the formation of built up edge, which is a very unstable phenomenon, and the built up edge gets built up and again collapses, and this goes on repeating with time at rapid succession. So, this gives rise to particles, unwanted particles getting distributed all over the finished surface, left behind from the collapsed built up edge, and the surface finish is very much deteriorated, and therefore, if we go for very high speed, built up edge formation is not found, and at that time we find that the some sort of super finishing can be carried out on the lathe itself without without going for abrasive machining. That means, very high speed, low feed, low depth of cut with application of coolant, if if it can be carried out, will give you very good surface finish. Together with, of course, tool angles chosen in such a way, so that the roughness height is very low. I would like to invite all people who are alive, that means who are listening in, please feel free to ask whatever question comes to your mind. The question you might be thinking is not relevant, or it's it's the answer is too obvious, but if you have any doubt, you can well come forward and ask that question. There is absolutely no problem to ask whatever questions that you have in mind. So, as long as you are thinking out the questions and writing them down and sharing it with us, let me discuss 1 or 2 aspects, like what can be the disadvantages of using abrasives for machining. In today's world, pollution, especially environmental pollution, is a very big issue. So, the question might come, what do I do with the abrasives which are used up? Do I reuse them? No. Whenever we are using abrasives in a jet or something like that, when they are used up, that means when they have been jetted out together with either a water stream or a gas stream, they invariably get mixed up with the small chips that they produce from the surface that they are machining. So, it will definitely get contaminated. Secondly, these abrasives are supposed to be sharp, and they are supposed to have a particular average particle size. When the abrasives are hitting a particular surface, they tend to break up. This is not desirable, because breaking of abrasive also takes away part of the energy that we are putting in for machining. But since abrasives are very hard and very brittle, these friable abrasives invariably break up into small particles, and that way the particle size distribution becomes very wide, and it becomes almost of no use to us. Because if you mix up very small particles with very large particles, first of all, their application might not have same effect as before. Why? Because we generally use a particular abrasive particle size for a particular application. If you want very high material removal, you will use coarse abrasives, large particle size, and therefore, the material machining will be fast. If you use very fine abrasives, correspondingly you will find that the surface finish is becoming higher. So, for finishing operations, better to use or precision operations, or for getting a very good surface finish, it is better to use small abrasives. But if they get mixed up, neither will you get a very fast or high material removal rate, nor will you get a very good surface finish. It will be somewhere in between. Together with that, there will be mix up of debris from the previous machining, and therefore, for all practical purpose, abrasives used once should never be used once again for machining applications. So, coming back to say discussion on say ultrasonic machining, you might think, okay, ultrasonic machining seems to be a small sized machine, that too very limited die sinking type operation. What is it good for? Is it just going to be a showpiece? No, there are some applications in which you will find, suppose you go to your respective educational institutions. Suppose you have to make a hole inside a glass paperweight for some application which you have in mind. You might find that there is absolutely no machine tool present in your whole institute which can do it. It is that simple, except ultrasonic machine perhaps, or some other abrasive process. So, though it is not very versatile, but it has some areas of application where ultrasonic machining will work and no other method. Apart from that, ultrasonic machining is not only the static type, but it can also be the rotary what do you call it, rotary ultrasonic. The tool will be a rotary tool, and it will have diamond particles impregnated on it, and that way it can have much higher material removal rates possible compared to the die sinking type. So, there are number of applications which can be done, and for that even ultrasonic machining centers are available. So, this way you will find there are many applications of this process, many applications of this machine, and that is why even though it is not as widespread as other non-traditional methods like, as I said, EDM, it does have its specific applications. And regarding, suppose you have a ductile material with you and you have only the ultrasonic machining available with you. So, in that case what do you do? So, the answer is, even though the material is ductile, in ultrasonic machining it will definitely have material removal, but this rate will be much lower than the material removal rate which is found in brittle materials. Mathematically, these two are made different in a way that in the formulation, the material which is removed per impact is considered to be a hemispherical chunk, while in case of what do you call it, in case of ductile materials being the workpiece, the material removal is just restricted to a segment of a sphere instead of being a hemisphere. So, this way by the formulation they are made different, but ultrasonic machining can do material removal on both, more effectively on brittle materials. And regarding the questions on assignment, I have been visiting the web page at regular intervals. Surprisingly, I found that there is almost no one who is responding on the web page. It might be because of the recent problem where educational institutions are closing down, they are closing their educational facilities. So, students have to attend to other other tasks that need attention immediately, but I have not got much response. So, I do not exactly know whether you are facing problems or whether everything is all right, but you are welcome to ask me anything anytime in this live session, or for example, on the forum. Even if you are not asking any questions, if any question arises in your mind, you can address me on the forum and you can just tell me that I need some clarification on this part, or you can ask me about the questions which will be coming on the exam. I can give you the pattern, I cannot of course tell you the questions, but I can give you the pattern, like those who have connected up late. I was just discussing this point that questions will be of mainly three types. There will be some questions carrying 2 marks each. Instant recall type, that is, the moment you come across the question, you find that I know the answer and you can immediately put it in. For example, if I put up one question that these questions will be easy, okay, like the term ultra USM stands for, and then I give you 4 options, among which one of them will be of course ultrasonic machining. That is, the term USM in metal cutting practice refers to or means or stands for etcetera, 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 4 options. You instantly know that the answer is ultrasonic machining. You might say, if I know it instantly, then why are you asking it? Well, that is the guideline given to us in NPTEL. Some questions should be instant recall type, some questions will be some sort of analysis, small calculations, etcetera. They will also carrying 2 marks each, and these two will be together 35 questions. Apart from that, there will be 10 questions which will be 3 marks each. So, 3 into 10 will be 30 and 35 into 2 will be 70, 70 plus 30 is 100, and these 3 number questions will be a bit more difficult, in the sense that you might have to solve by putting in values. You might have to find out something from an expression. You might have to they will also be of MCQ type, multiple choice, but it will require some sort of solution of a numerical problem, or it might be the solution of an analytical thought provoking problem, where there will be 4 options, non numerical options, from which you have to choose. Of course, they will be, they will not be very obvious, otherwise why should we put 3 marks into them. So, you might get both numerical or thought provoking analytical questions for those 10 questions of 3 marks each. So, those who are logging in late, please feel free to ask any questions that you might be having. I will be happy to respond to you. And last of all, when I have been visiting the web page, sometimes some students have mentioned that my payment system has failed, or some how to get a refund, etc. Some questions connected with money payment, or some questions regarding exam center, etc. If you have option to directly contact NPTEL, they are the best judges in this regard. You can send it to me, but that means that I will be compiling them from time to time and sending it to NPTEL. That will take some time. If you have a helpline, or if you have a contact email of NPTEL, just like we have customer care. So, if you have something like for candidates, there is some helpline or some email, then please make use of that. That will be far more quick. They will be quick to respond to that your question that way. So, the time that we still have, I will make use of it by relating some of the points which need to be remembered when you are appearing for the final exam. There will be some expressions which will be required for doing some calculations. For example, expression of MRR in case of ultrasonic machining, expression of MRR in case of abrasive jet machining. For example, I will say abrasive jet machining, find out the MRR when this is this, etc., etc. I give a lot of data. So, what do you do with that? Generally, as far as possible, I will provide you with all formula, all expressions, etc. For example, MRR in case of abrasive jet machining, if I remember correctly, it is equal to m dot into v to the power 3 by 2 divided by rho to the power 1/4 and into h to the power 3/4. I will provide you with this thing. You do not have to by heart all these things, because that is not the goal of this exam. This exam, whether you have the whether your thinking process has started, so that you can cope with any kind of problem that is given, not remembering formula. So, as far as possible, I will be providing the formula, and there will be many cases you might find that these things you have used so many times during solving of assignment, etc. I might not be elaborately defining all the terms in the expression. So, if I write that MRR, take MRR equal to m dot into v to the power 3 by 2, etc., etc. If I do not mention m dot is the mass flow rate of the abrasives, etc., that you are supposed to know. These things have been discussed so many times in the lectures and assignments. Do not get bogged down if some very well known term is not defined. If it is very well known term, much used, then if you come across it with a without a formal definition, just accept it. I have given you a handout which you will be getting when you are appearing for the exam. So, I would request you read that handout very carefully. In many cases, people have doubts. Many people say, I do not know whether two answers can be correct. So, these people will have all their doubts cleared when they go for the handout. So, study the handout and find out all the things that I have mentioned there, and that will help you a lot. So, since I have not got very many responses from you people, thank you for the two responses, I mean 2 questions which have been put up by 2 of your friends. But I feel at this moment we have given enough time, and though we have had a very fruitful discussion, it is basically a monologue, which means that only I am talking and you are listening, but it is supposed to be interactive. So, I think at this moment we can call it a day. Thank you very much. I hope for the best, that is we will be coming out, our country will be coming out of this crisis, and the exams which are postponed will be held as early as possible, so that you can appear for it, score well and get your certificate. Thank you very much, hoping for the best and wishing you the best of luck. Thanks.